Although the Zanu-PF conference this time around pronounced the resolution without explanations on how hard it is, especially to extend the term of office of for Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa, because of the complex nature of the processes. Mnangagwa has faced a lot of criticism, not only within the members of the opposition political party, but within ZANU-PF itself. This rhetoric of Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa has actually caused serious rift, a very serious rift within ZANU-PF. So I wonder why the people are blowing this out of proportion. Because remember, this resolution has been living with ZANU-PF for over a year. It was passed during the Bulawayo conference, but the then Secretary for Legal Affairs, Patrick Chinamasa, poured cold water during the ZANU-PF conference, telling the members of the conference that it was practically impossible to implement the bill. And making the matters worse was that Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa has actually not embraced the 2030 mantra. As such, we saw ZANU-PF post-conference lashing out at the then Secretary for Legal Affairs. And this time around, towards the conference, they had to change him, and they put a new secretary for legal affairs, that is Ziyambi, who quickly twagged to the needs as well as the aspirations of Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa. Following this, Zimbabweans in all walks of life have actually demonstrated resentments towards this activity, that this political activity that could be catastrophic and damaging, not only to the Zimbabwean society, but to the coexistence of ZANU-PF as a political institution itself. One of the professors who says the term extension should not see the light of the day is none other than Professor Maduku, who happens to be a constitutional lawyer or a constitutional expert with a wealth of experience when it comes to constitutional issues in Zimbabwe. Being interviewed by the BBC, let me just play the interview of the BBC for a few minutes. I think I would have to start in between. Yeah.
President Constantino Chiwenga had further erode public trust amid economic turmoil and growing repression. Well, earlier I spoke to Professor Lovemore Maduku, a leading constitutional law expert and longtime advocate for democratic reform. He has his perspective on what the ZANU-PF would have to do legally to change that rule.
Unfortunately, there's no way they can change that if the proposal, as far as we hear it, is to extend the term of office of the president, for the president to remain in office beyond the 5-year limit, which ends in 2028. There are certain things you can change in the constitution, others you cannot change. The president was elected by the people in 2023 to serve a 5-year term. And the term, the 5 years given in the constitution, would apply to a person who has been elected for a given term, and that can only be done by the people themselves. So Parliament is out of it. The mistake they are having is that they think that Parliament can do anything, that Parliament can write anything into the Constitution or remove whatever they want from the Constitution. That is not how it works.
If they go to the people, can they get their wish to extend the president's term by that extra 2 years if the people give them the green light to do so?
They cannot do that. You only go back to the people through an election. You cannot go to the people to them anything else.
Can you with a referendum with specific questions?
No. A referendum doesn't exist for that purpose. If your idea is to say that you want a person who is president to remain in office, there's only one way of doing it. You call an election for that person to remain in office. In this case, they have to deal with the provisions that regulate when you end a term, and when, in this case, the president is a two-term thing, they will have to amend provisions relating to those two terms, which they cannot without a referendum.
Are you then expecting someone to move to court to challenge this proposal by Zanu-PF?
It's premature to challenge it. It is a proposal. It is nothing. It is nothing, as we said. We can't say that when political parties meet, no matter how happy they are, how, whatever they do, we can't take their proposal. They said something when they met and they called them resolutions. There's nothing to take to court there. We have to wait until they embark on a process. I'm talking about legally. But politically, it's for different politicians to say what do we read into those kind of utterance. This is a political party that is very good at sending signals left, right, and center. So until they start process which has legal consequences, then we'll start really saying, well, we can have a legal step. But what I know is that there will be elections, and there must be elections in 2028.
What justification is behind this proposal? Those who are pushing for it, championing for it, why are they saying that Zimbabwe needs this at this time?
The group of people who are pushing it, they are those persons that stand to benefit the president remaining in office. They are not people who are saying that the country will benefit from the president remaining in office. Everyone knows that the country will benefit from a limit of terms to the president. Whoever is our president must serve a maximum of 2 terms. That is what will benefit this country. Any attempt to change that cannot be said to be done in the spirit of wanting to benefit the country. The political party itself is divided. It's not a position that is unanimous within their political party. So you always get, because they don't vote at their gatherings, they just make noise. And the loudest noise is the one that is then called a resolution.
Anyway, I think Lovemore Maduku said it all. So I was laughing at how we actually called this. As I have always said, that's why I'm saying this thing is blown out of proportion. That day when there was Zanu-PF conference, I predicted that there is high probability whether the demos that were organized by Blessed Geza were going to achieve an almost overwhelming intended purpose. Still, they were going maybe to cut short, but that resolution would have been announced, because don't ever think that resolution, there was a set down during the conference where it was penned down, framed in such a manner, Ziambi read it. No, this was written at the Mnangagwa's bedroom, brought to the conference. Then they brought drunken youths to come and sing loud. And then they then called that a resolution. I love what Professor Maduku says, that in Zanu-PF, they don't vote. The person who sings louder at the top of his voice, that is the person that actually is heard at the end of the day. So the mere fact that they announced this without a vote already tells you. A lot of people think that retired General Chwenga was going to lift up his hand when Opam Chinguri said, anyone who objects to this resolution, raise your hand. That was absurd. They knew what he told. The man is intelligent. The man is not like Mnangagwa, as well as those who are following him. The man it's unfortunate that intelligence is weighed through how you pronounce English and so forth. But intelligence, in my view, goes beyond this. You cannot say retired General Chwenga is not intelligent. I think you'll be stupid to underrate the man. Why do I say so? This is the man, when Mnangagwa had been fired, who managed to unite the rest of the military. The military that was known to be loyal to the dictator for years, and the government that had individuals such as Professor Jonathan Moyo, that man managed to lead the military without shedding a lot of blood. I don't know, but as of, I was not informed of anyone who was I was told people were killed. It's not reported. Maybe that's the truth, but I did not hear of anyone who was actually killed. When that coup was implemented, it took some days. The men made it a point that even the person they were removing was not killed. I mean, it was done so smart. I remember some of the analysts deciding to coin it a soft coup to such an extent that even Sadik had to welcome it. It was not done chaotically. That cannot be done by someone who is not smart. Don't listen to the propaganda that now they are seeking to discredit him. We understand why they are doing so. Deep down in their hearts, they know that is not a man to play with. Because when it comes to capabilities, intelligence, not pronunciation of any language that is not your mother language, by the way. So we communicate in English, not because we love it. We communicate it so that we reach to, unfortunately, colonization left us with this scar, and because of poor leadership in Africa, that is why we have to do so, to be heard by others. Otherwise, as Africans, we should have come up maybe with the language that we all understand. That is why we have to break this English, broke it, whatsoever you can call it, to convey communication. So, I like how actually Professor Maduku put it. He said, they sang loud, some are objecting to this, and he says it's a resolution that was made, maybe out of excitement. It is not our issue to deal with. It remains a resolution of a political part. Maybe someone was being given a strong beer, maybe someone took strong drugs. I mean, that is a resolution. When he was asked, should it be challenged legally? It is still premature because it has not translated into actually a bill. If we see, we know obviously, we know that there is a bill that is already prepared. But at the moment, without them formally releasing it publicly, you cannot challenge them. But at least what we can do at the moment is to conscientize communities that, hey, there is this at stake, stay awake, so that the moment they fire shots, you are ready to actually defend it. But what has been very catastrophic on Emerson Mnangagwa, I have never heard any opposition leader, except maybe those who are in parliament, but out of fear and greediness, they are silent, they are not saying anything. But overwhelmingly, the majority of the people of Zimbabwe, the majority of the people and the majority of who is who in the Zimbabwean politics strongly object to this nonsense called term extension. Maybe if they were doing something like, you know, people would actually talk about it, but it ends there. But I think if Mnangagwa wants to see flames, he should actually release this bill publicly. That is when he would see that when you overstretch the people, you know, and the people say enough is enough, he would see how, in fact, we are heading to that day. Because there are no leaders in Zimbabwe, because most of the leaders are compromised, both in the opposition, where Zanu-PF is not a case study to actually talk about, because leaders are compromised. Even if we don't get a leader who will actually do the will of the people, we are going to a period whereby there would be a leaderless revolution, and that would be catastrophic because of poor leadership that Zimbabwe has been subjected to since 1980. Unfortunately, that is the route we will take. But unless we get someone who can actually stand and say, no, we are tired of what has been happening in the past. Now we want to give people the real leadership, because we have learned that this is not working for the people and also for Zanu-PF as a political party. Just imagine, you know, if Zanu-PF handled the economy like, you know, one thing, of course, people can say a lot of things about ANC. ANC is quite smarter than Zanu-PF. Very, very smart. Of course, they have got their weaknesses, but look at how South Africa is running, how South Africa is thriving. Even if you are not a politician, you can live in South Africa. But in Zanu-PF, once you are chucked out, like Professor Jonathan, like Xavier Kasukwere, it becomes very cold outside because Zanu-PF has created a scenario whereby it is only warm within, but outside it is cold. As we are used to this coldness, and this has actually developed us to have a thick skin. But if you are used to, I mean, that the environment of Zanu-PF, whereby if you are part of a Zanu-PF leader, your businesses are not taxed, you are exempted, you know, that kind of unethical behavior. Now, when you get out and you get to experience what your fellow brothers and sisters have been experiencing due to the system that you had nurtured for the rest of your life, that's where you see the realities and you would understand why Zimbabweans have been crying for the rest of their lives. So 2030 is highly objected. You know, Lovemore Maduku sometimes is a character that cannot also be understood politically. But this time around, he is deciding. I'm not so sure whether if Zukanandas are going to cast something in his basket, he's going to change the language. But this time around, he's standing firm that 2030 is unconstitutional. If something is not, if the constitution is silent about something, especially looking at the precedent that has been set by the Zimbabwean judicial. I remember there is a case of Ndele kingship that the courts said we cannot allow the people of Matabeleland to have a king because the constitution is silent about it. They said so. So the constitution is equally silent about 2030. Then I want to see the flip-flopping nature of the regime, especially when it comes to this issue. There are numerous cases that they have actually thrown out of the court, arguing that the constitution did not cater for such case scenarios. This is another resolution that is absurd to the highest levels you can imagine, that they want to sneak in to the people of Zimbabwe. It will be interesting to see how the courts will actually behave. And when we reach that stage, I'm so interested in actually hearing how the courts will actually handle the matter. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of the channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Now, I think I'll be back later on. I have to do some of the things. There's a lot that I have to talk about, but I'll come. You know, I select an item per item. So there are a lot of stories. Just keep on checking and make sure you are subscribed. You press the bell so that when I come through, you will be the first one to